Okay, good morning, or whatever time it is that you're watching the replay back of this. Very excited today to have the wonderful Cameron Marsden from Bulletproof My Business. I have been, as many of you know who've been following Ladies with Tradies for a little while, a chronic stalker of quite a number of people who seem to have a good reputation around the place. And Cam just happens to be one of the people that I stalked and, said, hey, I think that you have something that our audience needs. So can we chat? So that's a bit of how Cameron and I met up. It's been a long time coming for us to do this live webinar, Cam. We've had all sorts of different things happen between us where it hasn't happened, but
Yes.
here we are now, and I'm very excited to have you. So thanks so much for jumping on today.
Thanks for having me. It's been a pleasure being stalked.
Absolutely. So one of the reasons that Cameron came to my attention, I suppose we work pretty hard at Ladies with Tradies to find solutions to people's problems. And one of the big problems that we have in tradie land is first, getting paid, second, having contracts with the right information in them, and terms and conditions and all that kind of intricate legal jargony stuff that is imperative in business that most of us don't know how to navigate. So what I found in just having the first couple of chats with Cameron was that, well, he doesn't speak in that jargony crap that none of us are interested in anyway, but he knows his stuff. And B, the system that goes alongside all of that is super cool. So we're lucky enough to be able to see that in action today. But first we'll have a bit of a chat with you, Cameron, just to give us a bit of a rundown. So let me let this person in. So Cameron, give me a bit of give us your backstory and, how did you get to this point?
Okay, well, I've been doing this for a while. I actually realized just the other day that I've been running Bulletproof for nearly 7 years now. So it's been longer than I realized. Time flies when you're having fun, I guess. And, the reason I started Bulletproof is because I saw that there was a real need out there for people to get paid in full and on time. And unfortunately, a lot of people put the credit process in just the too hard basket. And too often we'll do a handshake agreement and say, that will do. It's worked for me before. I'll get paid. It should be fine. And really, they're living on a hope and a prayer that it's all going to go well. And when it doesn't, they either bury their head in the sand and say, well, it must have been an isolated case, or they want to not examine what the process was, but just hope that it was not going to happen again. And either way, it's a bit of a problem. And so really what I wanted to do with Bulletproof, and I think what we've achieved, is we take the credit process that a bank would run and we make that as simple as sending an email. So it means that the excuses are gone. The reason that you wouldn't do it is no longer there. And therefore you can follow the ideal credit process for every single one of your new customers you take on without adding this burden of administration, because frankly, you didn't become a tradie to do paperwork. Now, that's what we are here to make work better. And, to that extent, we are getting to the point now where our process almost doesn't even get in the way of what you would normally do. So if you're using job management software, for example, we can almost work in the background around what you're doing. You just keep doing what you would normally do, and you've got the benefit of being protected by contracts. So there's quite a bit that we do with that. And on the other side of it, I guess, I've specialized in translating the jargon that you were talking about, legal speak, and translating it into real life language that makes sense, basically giving context and perspective to the legal changes and the legal side that you need to be aware of. Because unfortunately, as business owners, we're expected to be the lawyer, the accountant, the tradesperson. We're expected to know everything, and ignorance is absolutely not going to help us. So when it comes to the more complex side of doing business with other businesses and really issuing credit and getting paid on invoices, I do my best to try and make that as simple and easy to understand as possible, and just use language that actually makes sense to the rest of us and translate from the solicitors out there.
Beautiful. So if you were to say sort of the one or two of the greatest symptoms that your business cures or, gets rid of, what would you say those few things are?
Well, I guess the best way to describe it, we're Australia's only debt preventer. Okay, there's no one else out there that does what we do. There are a lot of debt collectors who purport to do this sort of thing, but the fact of the matter is, debt collectors treat the symptom, we treat the root cause. It's a totally different way of approaching it. And as a result, if you think about it, a debt collector is going to make money when your terms of trade fail.
Mm.
We make sure your terms of trade don't fail.
Yep.
That's what we do. So really what we find is anyone who is in business who has had people who haven't paid them at all, or who have decided to implement their own payment terms. So you tell them they're on 7 days and they say, well, once the job is done, we're actually on 60 days
Don't
or when
feel
we
like
feel like it.
that.
Yeah, we fix that. We fix that problem. And one of the first things that people find when they join Bulletproof, when they first start using it, is that it's a bit of a scary experience when you haven't had terms of trade in place, when you haven't had a formal process. A lot of the time people are a little nervous or apprehensive about sending those terms of trade out, and they find, to their surprise and usually delight, that they get a more positive reaction when they send the terms of trade out. People look at them and take them more seriously as a
Mm.
business, and it has a really polarizing effect. One of two things happens. Usually, 99% of the time, people sign it without question, and they look at the payment terms, they say, yep, that's what I'm going to stick to, and it eliminates a lot of these problems. A very small percentage of people who refuse to sign the terms of trade, amazingly, they're the ones who weren't going to pay you, which means they're basically declaring, hey, I'm a problem customer, and you just don't deal with them. Cut
Mm.
them off at that point, and it eliminates the problem before it becomes one. Now, when you do that, it means that you've effectively eliminated bad debt.
Yeah.
You've stopped it from being a problem in the first place by taking that preemptive step. Because
Mm.
the fact of the matter is, if you want to do business with somebody, signing a contract will never deter you.
Yeah.
The mobile phone that everybody has, we all
Mm.
signed a contract for it. We signed it without hesitation. We didn't sit there and pour through the terms and conditions because we wanted it and we intended to pay for it. If those two things are present, there's never going to be an issue.
Yeah, and I think you nailed it with the fear around terms and conditions. So a lot of the people who will be watching this or that we work with, they might have had their little one-liner that says please pay within X number of days and things like that. But
Yeah,
I think we're in a different time and space right now where there has to be a bit more meat on the bone, I suppose you would say, and it's about people don't know what they might be missing, and I think
absolutely.
that's a really interesting thing is. Well, we sort of know what we need in there a little bit, but maybe not enough. And that's where a business like yours can come in and actually make sure that everything's covered off, it's watertight, and you're going to have much better experience all round.
Absolutely. And in fact, you've really you've illustrated one of the key problems that a lot of businesses have, and that is that they don't know where these need to be, because it doesn't matter what you put on your invoice. The invoice is after the fact. It's too
Mm.
late. Nothing on your invoice is legally binding.
Yeah.
Okay. Terms and conditions are only legally binding if they're accepted in writing at the point of incurring the debt. Now,
Mm.
for most trades, this means at the point where you're doing the quote, you have to get the acceptance of your terms of trade.
Yeah.
If you get your quote accepted, then you do your invoice, and on the invoice it says 7 days. Companies can quite legally turn around and say, we're paying you, or people as well, we're paying you at 60 days, and there's literally nothing you can do about it because you never defined your payment terms before the debt was incurred. So there was no payment term, there was
Yep.
no payment term
And
defined.
people don't realise that. It's I remember when
Exactly.
we first talked, I went, heck, that's a massive problem in our space where people go, oh, but I've got these terms and conditions, but like you said, it's in the too late basket when we're at invoice point. We've had
Exactly.
no way of ensuring that this person's not got any intention of not paying whatsoever because we haven't done enough all the checks and balances before we've gone and started the job.
That's exactly right. And I think the other side of that too is that quite often there seems to be an evolution businesses go through. Okay, typically there are several stages we go through. First off, we start off in the naive stage where we have absolutely nothing in place
We
because
don't know what we don't know.
no, because everyone loves us, and of course they're going to pay us. Why wouldn't they? We did an amazing job. Until the first time someone doesn't pay you. And then usually what happens is they'll do a bit of a Google search and they'll find, or they'll look at someone else's terms and conditions. They'll take out the bits and pieces that they think apply to them and they create what we call a Franken terms. And the Franken terms are basically those custom made by not quite qualified people
Yeah.
who put together what they think they need. And there are quite often references in there that are from overseas. The number of times we've seen Franken terms that refer to American law,
Mm.
Australian law, it just boggles the mind. But Obviously, because they're not specialized in this, they've done what they can and put it together. The problem with that is when it comes to enforcing it, quite often it doesn't actually do anything to protect them. Then when those fail, what usually happens is they'll look for some sort of solution. Either they'll go to a solicitor and pay a fortune to have custom terms written up just for them, which are great at the time
Yeah.
until the law changes. And
Mm.
then they are possibly out of date and utterly useless, which is not the way we want to go. And then the last stage usually is when people come to us and we provide them with an ongoing service. We don't just give you a document and then you're off on your own. The fact is, we provide the entire credit process, including updating those terms of trade as the law changes, so that you know that you're always protected, you're always covered. You don't have to sit there and double check or think whether or not it's actually going to protect you, because it just does.
So, Cameron, if we can just go back, because I want to pull a specific part of that out if I can. So, the credit process, I think this is a thing that, again, we do pretty poorly in our space. So, can you just pad that out a bit more and explain what you mean by that?
Sure. The credit process has five main parts to it. First of all, and honestly, each part of this builds on the last. If you do not complete one step, the rest of it will fall over. So the first step, and the most important one that almost everybody skips, is identification. You have to identify who your customer is. Now, what I mean by that specifically is your customer might be a trading name that you know. Let's use an example. Let's just say that you're dealing with a Subway.
Yep.
And usually the Subway's trading name is Subway and then the suburb name. That's not the legal name. Okay, now that might not even be the trading name. You might just be guessing because that's what you know them as. Now, that being the case, sorry, my computer just went to sleep. Sorry for
Still
that.
got you.
Okay, so that being the case, what you need to do is actually identify the legal name. And quite often, the way that you would do that at the moment is you would ask them what it is, and there is the potential for human error because they're telling you what it is, you're entering it, or you give them a blank form and let them do all the work, which means that they'll usually skip parts of it and just give you the closest to not quite accurate information. Either way, it doesn't really help. Once you've identified the customer properly, the next stage is to present your terms of trade and have them agreed to. Now, that's probably the most critical part of the process because everything else forms around that. But you can't create an agreement with an entity that you don't know who it is. So obviously we go identify and then terms. The next stage after that is to do your due diligence. Now, I want to qualify this, and this is an important point.
Mm.
We used to strongly support credit checks. We do not support them anymore at all. There are no credit bureaus in Australia that we've found that have got accurate enough information that you can actually use them for a credit decision. Now, let me qualify that so I don't get myself sued. If you go, let's just say that you're dealing with one of the companies that's got the initial CW. Okay, we won't name them. If you do a check with them, they could come back and say that it's perfectly clean. But if that company has got a default with one of the other two, you're not going to see it.
Mm.
And vice versa with any of them, it works the same way. Because they don't interoperate, it means that there is a blind spot for all of them. And the check can come back and say it's clear, when in reality, they could be absolutely dirty and you
Mm.
wouldn't know. Now, that's a big problem. We actually have got a better solution for that. We're working on it at the moment. And at the moment, Xero is kind of fighting us on that. So we're having a few issues with getting it adopted, but I'll talk about that when we're ready to present it. Suffice to say, what we're working on will be real time, 100% accurate, and we'll keep updated as time goes on.
Yeah.
So let's just say it's the benefit of cloud accounting. Everything is live.
Yeah.
Now, the next stage after that, and this is one that almost everybody skips, even if they've got a manual credit process in place, is to formally allocate payment terms to the customer. Okay, now that's a critical step. If you don't allocate payment terms and you don't formally say to them, your payment terms are 30 days or 30 days into a month or 7 days or COD or whatever it is, then they can say they didn't get any and therefore they can define their own. And there's
Mm.
nothing wrong with that because they haven't actually been told what they are. Now, that's a big problem. That obviously means that you need to control when your cash flow is coming in by defining that. If you don't, you've lost control of that.
Mm.
Okay. The next stage of this process, and probably one of the most important, I would say, is registration. Okay, now this only applies to commercial customers, and this is all about liquidation protection. Now, what this step actually does is it creates a registration on what's called the PPSR, the Personal Property Securities Register, that identifies you as a company or a business that is owed money by this other business. Now, the reason that that is so important, in the case of a liquidation, if your customer goes into liquidation, you will either be secured or unsecured. If you're unsecured, which almost all of you will be,
Yeah.
okay, then when that customer goes into liquidation, they've either paid you or they owe you money. Okay. Now, if they owe you money, and as a lot of you probably have experienced or know of, you won't get a cent back. It's very unlikely that you'll get anything back. And in fact, the statistics are such that about 96% of unsecured creditors got 0 cents on the dollar, and then about 98%, so that extra 2%, got less than 1 cent in the dollar. Okay, now that is a horrendous statistic.
Yeah.
But the reality is there isn't usually money for unsecured creditors in the process of liquidation. Unsecured creditors being the key word here. Conversely, if they have paid you money, there is a risk that most business owners are blissfully unaware of, and this one is really important. There's a nasty little law called voidable preference. It's also known as preferential payment clawback or just clawback as well. If your customer goes into liquidation, the liquidators can look at the previous 4 years of trade history with you and everybody else, and the liquidators can then come back and take the last 6 months worth of what you got paid back from you with 7 days notice, and there's no recourse against that. Basically, if they prove that you were unsecured and that you were paid, they can take that money back off you. Okay, so it's a really nasty law.
Crazy.
And most people are blissfully unaware of it, but it's a huge risk. If you're carrying, just to illustrate this in numbers, if you've got a customer who's spending $3,000 a month with you, okay, $3,000 a month, and they're on 30-day terms. So they're always owing you at least $3,000, sometimes $6,000, depending on how quickly they pay you. If they go into liquidation, in the last 6 months, they've paid you $18,000. Okay, they owe you $3,000, and you're not making 100% profit on that. So let's just be generous and say you're making 50% profit. That $18,000 has cost you at least $9,000 to generate.
Yeah.
And then the liquidator comes along and says, right, you've got to give us back $18,000. You're owed $3,000, and it cost you $9,000, which means that $3,000 a month customer is a $30,000 risk if you're not a secured creditor. It's a huge thing. Just to go over those numbers again, they've paid you $18,000 over the last 6 months. They owe you $3,000, and that 18 cost you at least 9. And obviously, it's going to be more than that usually, but it costs you at least 9 to generate.
Yep.
Okay, that means that $3,000 a month customer is at least a $30,000 risk. That can be fixed for $22. That's what we do.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's a pretty easy decision when it comes to that.
Yeah.
But you've got to be aware of the problem. You've got to be aware that it is a problem. And even if you've never been stung by it, you don't want to wait until you do to say, I probably should have fixed that 6 months ago.
Yeah.
That's really what we find is the biggest issue when it comes to take up of our process is just inertia. People think that they are safe because they have been safe for a period of time. It only takes one.
That's the thing, is that it is the too late she cried, and then they come searching for you, Cam. But that's why we're trying to push this sort of info out there, because it's frightening how unsafe we are financially as an industry overall.
Especially now in the current situation, circumstances have changed. The rules around liquidation have changed. So it means that it's actually harder to push a business into liquidation, which is a good thing. However, it also means that the rules that were there to protect us against liquidation and the way that we would process businesses that we deal with has changed as well. So we need to have more security, not less, which means you've got to have your contract. You've got to be a secured creditor, and your contract has to be very strong so that there are other avenues apart from just liquidation to protect you if you're owed money. Because at the moment, the entire debt collection industry is practically useless.
It's crazy.
I probably shouldn't say that they normally are either, but it's true. The fact is, if you need a debt collector, it's too late. The problem happened 6 months ago, 12 months ago. Whenever you started dealing with them, that's when the problem actually occurred. And that's what you need to fix if you want to keep getting paid on time and in full.
And by the time it gets to debt collection as well, it's quite a laborious, stressful process. You're having to prove yourself. You're having to do all these things that feel a bit uncomfortable. And
Yep.
but at the same time, you're sort of sitting there going, but that's my money. Like, I don't, it's a bit of a, yeah, it's not ideal. So it's great to know that there is a solution out there like this. So yeah, so I guess, how does it all work, Cam? How do we go about it?
It's really straightforward. Basically, the process that we go through, you start off with a 7-day free trial, jump into our system, take it for a test drive and see how it works. See if it works for you. You won't have any trouble going through it. We basically have made it follow the bouncy ball step by step. There's only usually one step you can take, or if there are two, it's very clearly color coded so you know which way is positive, which way is negative. Now, once you've done that, when you're within the account, you can actually send out terms of trade to your customers immediately, which means you can get yourself protected and try it out and see how the process works for yourself. Once you've done that, assuming you're happy, most people usually only need it for a few hours and they see how easy it is and they're happy to upgrade. You just click on upgrade within the system and you upgrade it. The pricing, do you want me to go through the pricing as well?
Whatever works for you, mate.
Yeah, the pricing is really straightforward. It's basically broken into three parts. One part you've already heard, and that's becoming a secured creditor. That's $22. It lasts for 7 years. And it's basically the cheapest form of insurance you'll ever get. The setup is 1100 including GST once. And for that, what we do is we actually customize the platform and integrate it with all of your software. So being a cloud provider, we don't care what software you're using. If you're using just an accounting system or job management system or a combination, we integrate with everything. Okay, so we basically customize the platform to fit in with your process to make it as easy as possible for you. On top of that, we train yourself, we train your staff, we make sure that everything you need is up and running so that you're ready to get protected.
Yep.
Now, we're also a certified zero add-on, so we're in the add-on marketplace in there, and as part of the process, we're able to import your zero clients as customers and send that out as well.
Mm-hmm.
$55 a month as well. It's called Future Proof Terms, and that actually does quite a few things for you. First off, the terms of trade are a living document. Okay, it's not just a document we give you and then you're on your own. Because we update those terms of trade constantly, that's obviously built in as part of the process. Okay. On top of that, you can send out an unlimited number of terms of trade. So we don't care if you're sending out 3 in a month or 3,000 in a month, it's not going to cost you any extra. Add to that the fact that you get unlimited guidance, training, and support. Okay, and overall, you've got a platform that really does help you quite a bit. Finally, with that, any new features that we develop, you get automatic access to. We're like Xero or anything else. When you log in, it's always up to date. And we're constantly working on new things and improving the process. I'm a bit of a perfectionist. I'm never happy with how things are, and I want to make this as easy as possible. And ideally, this will just drop into your business invisibly. The customs will interact with it. You won't even realize that it's there until we need to ask you a question. So we do all the heavy lifting for you.
Excellent. And so we basically just book a time and then you start the process with the client or the trades business and go from there.
Absolutely. So you get your free trial, upgrade the account, which is just using direct debit. And then as soon as you've done that, you just book in a setup time and we go through and get you set up from there.
Beautiful.
Look, generally speaking, if you're in a hurry, we can usually do your setup the same day.
Okay.
But yet usually it's 2 to 3 days afterwards, depending on when you can actually fit us in.
Yeah, beautiful. And I mean, the thing that rings beautifully in my ears there is that the integration is done, because I think a lot of people have moved on to job management software or they're using the Xeros of the world, but how that all links together can be a bit of a nightmare. So
Yep, exactly.
good to know that
Exactly.
that's all done for you. So beautiful.
We take care of the technical side of it. That's the only part that's even remotely challenging. The whole service works on a mobile phone. So you can pull out your phone and run your credit process through your mobile. You can do it on a PC or on a tablet. And the same is true when you send it off to your customers. They can actually sign it on their mobile. So there's no excuse that they lost it or the email disappeared or any of that other nonsense. It's easy and it just works. And because we take away the only complicated part of it, it makes the whole process a lot simpler. At the end of the day, we could leave people to their own devices to integrate this themselves, but we find that it's a lot quicker and easier for everyone if we just get it done for you.
Yep, perfect. Okay, so I believe you're going to give us a little bit of a spin round the process via the screen. Is that right?
Yes. what we're going to do is we're actually going to sign your business up for a trial account.
Ooh, okay.
So I'll send you through the link in the chat. I'm just typing it now.
Okie doke.
There we go.
So are you wanting me to share my screen, or?
It will display your mobile number, so as long as you're comfortable with that, absolutely.
Anyone can get hold of that. Okay, ignore the number of tabs, everybody. All right, so my name. Oops. Should have done Jace. I'm on his computer at the moment.
No, it has to be you.
Click next.
That's right, click on next. Now this is actually, we use our own process as well. So you see here, it's asking you to identify your business name.
Yep.
So you don't have to put the whole thing in, part of it will do.
I'd have to remember. I don't know this off the top of my head.
Now this is interesting. Do you have a trading name or do you have a trust?
Trading.
Okay, so put your trading name in.
She is.
There we go.
Oh, that's easy, ladies.
So we try to take all the complexity. Oh, you might want to.
Oh,
I don't know if you care if your date of birth is on there.
If people are going to take the time to remember that, good luck to them. They'll know how old I am. Okay. And then we trading as. Okay.
Yeah, this is the hardest part of the process out of the way. So now all you do is tick the box and click the button. Okay. That's it. That's all that you need to do. Now,
okay.
You'll be sent a link in your email, which will allow you to set your password.
Okay. Do you want me to do that?
Yep. So that link will come through and then you set your password and then you'll be into the platform.
Maybe you're in that other box.
Did I go into junk mail?
I'm just checking. No, you didn't. You haven't arrived to me yet. Wentworth internet.
That's all right. It'll get there.
Come on.
Actually, did you already sign up for this?
Quite possibly.
That might be why. So let me just reset your password for you.
Okay.
Yeah, you have to. Okay. So you'll get an email in a second asking you to reset your password. There we go. Did you get that email?
Just thinking.
The perils of doing this live.
Bear with us, ladies.
Sorry?
I just said, bear with us, ladies, who are watching. No, it doesn't like me.
Okay.
Not liking me.
That's all right. I can do it from here.
Okay. If you just want to share the screen your side, that's all good.
I'll share our demo company. Actually, you're already in there though, so let me just switch to another business we use for testing. Okay, perfect. Share my screen.
Okay.
Very good. Did that work?
Yes, I can see that.
Perfect. Okay,
I'm
so
not sure
this
if
is
everybody else can see it because they're off screen.
okay. I might just make that slightly smaller so it's easier to see. There
Okay.
we go. Okay, so there are two ways that customers can agree to your terms of trade. The most common way is a link that we give you that's customized and specific to you that you can put on pretty much anything. You can put on your website, you can put on your term, on your quotes, sorry. It's actually here in the settings page. So this link here is the one that we're talking about. I'm actually going to send you this link in the chat and we'll get you to sign the terms of trade. Where is the chat now? Oh, it's up here. Hang on a second. Okay, so that link that I've just sent you there,
Okay.
if you click on that, now
Yep.
this is basically what your customers would see. So for those playing at home, obviously you can't see this, but it's exactly the same as the trial sign up account that you just saw, except instead of being Bulletproof, this one is Fipsy Tech we're using for this demo.
Okay. So do you want me to do something?
Yep, just pop your details into it. So we'll just pretend it's a normal account, and basically it's the same process you went through when you were getting a trial account, except this one is just a demo. And then I'll show you what we see on our side. So this is actually a really good example. What happens here when your customers go to sign the link that we're giving them, you'll get an email from the system saying that someone has signed your terms of trade. Click here to continue the credit process. When you click on that link, or when you actually go through that, it will take you through to what we call the customer story, which when you're finished, Kate, we'll be able to see that in just a moment.
Hope it's good. Hope the story's good. All right, I've done that.
Perfect. So I'm just going to refresh that page. We're going to skip the email part of it. Go to set payment terms. And this is what we call the customer story. So if you clicked on the link in the email, this is the page it would bring you to. So you can see here, we know the name, we've got the ABN, the trading name is listed there. So we can see when the customer was added, terms of trade signed, all the important times and dates are here. And now we're up to the set payment terms part of the process. So already we have identified who the customer is. We have had terms of trade signed. So the first two steps are already done. Now, when we get to set payment terms, in this case, this list is completely customizable. So we make this fit whatever you've got. And the credit limit you can use if it applies to your industry. For most industries, it doesn't. So we usually skip that. Then all we need to do is approve that application. Now, as soon as we do that, we can see when we approved it and what we approved it for. And an email gets sent through to the customer, formally informing them of their payment terms. So now you'll get an email saying you've been approved for 7 days, and that way you know exactly what you're up for.
Yep.
Okay. Now, at the same time, you can review that payment term if you decide you need to change it. So if you've put them on COD and you want to give them a credit account or vice versa, you simply review the payment terms, change it to whatever is appropriate, and approve it or decline it, as the case may be. Now, that last step, becoming a secured creditor, now this is a little bit of a complicated step, so I'm going to walk through this really slowly. Becoming a secured creditor, what you need to do, you see that register GSI button there?
Mm-hmm.
You click
Yep. Oh, on my side.
No. That's literally all that you need to do. So becoming a
Oh,
secured
right.
creditor, you literally just click a button.
Your screen.
In this case, I'm going to skip it because I just want to show you what happens there. So you can skip it and that becomes the end of the process.
Yeah.
And as you can see here, it gives you a summary of what's going on with all of the different customers. Okay.
Right.
So it's really straightforward. It's really simple. We've tried to make it as easy as possible. And the fact is, you don't even need to put the details in yourself. You could literally email, text, or instant message that link to your customer and they do all the heavy lifting for you, which is the idea at the end of the day. We're not here to make more work for you. Let the customers enter their information. They normally would if they're making an inquiry anyway. Makes sense for them to do it for this.
So just a question in how that sort of unfolded. Where do they actually read the terms of trade?
underneath where that tick box was when you were doing the trial account, if
Yep.
you scrolled further down, there's a
There's all
whole
ones
lot
in
of
there.
terms and conditions underneath it.
Right.
So
Perfect.
it's all there. It's visible. They are welcome to read through it if they want to. It will put them to sleep. Just be warned.
Yes.
But it is there, and they can obviously read it and agree to it at that point. If they don't agree to it, if they have a problem with it, they're not going to sign it.
Beautiful. No, and that's true. It's if people are going to have problems with paying, or they'll click the box, and they'll just they won't. Sorry, that people who are going to do honest business, they'll go, yeah, no worries, whatever, just get it done. So
Exactly.
amazing. Okay, so any sort of last key messages? You've run us through what it looks like. You've run us through how it works, which has all been brilliant. Any sort of last take home messages for the people to know?
Absolutely. Look, I think one thing that I find is a common misconception is that you're too small to have terms and conditions. You are absolutely not. What you need to understand is every time you sell on credit, you're actually lending money to the other business. And this is probably the most important takeaway from this whole thing. If you sell to someone on credit, you are lending them money. Now, this is the equivalent of me walking up to you on the street, you not knowing me from a bar of soap, and saying, hey, can I borrow $5,000? I'll shake your hand for it. Promise I'm good for it. I'll even give you 2 mobile numbers of people that you don't know who say that I'm a great guy who'll pay his debts. Obviously, I'm being a little facetious, but that's
Yep.
basically how we operate. You need to have proper terms and conditions. You need to have a formal process, and it doesn't have to be hard.
Yep.
You've seen how easy it can be. Now you just need to get it done.
Copy and paste a link. Beautiful. I love it.
That's it.
Beautiful. All right. Well, I'll just check there. Is there any questions? If the ladies have got questions, they can either come off mute or put them in the chat box. I know while we're finding out if there's any questions about the terms and conditions, etc., there or Bulletproof, how can we get in contact with you, Cam?
Okay, there are a couple of different ways of doing it. You can jump on the Facebook website, Bulletproof My Business. We're easy to find there.
Yep.
Otherwise, our website is bpmb.com.au. And
BPMB, which makes sense. At
bpmb.com.au.
Yep.
And also, and look, I'm assuming you'll probably post the trial link below or with the description. So the trial link is the easiest way to get started, and that way you can jump in. And obviously, if you have any questions, reach out to either Bulletproof. You can find me as well. I'm pretty easy to find. So
yep, that's all right.
yeah,
we're not hard to find. We want people to find us, don't we?
that's right.
Yeah.
That's right. I'm exactly the same with my mobile number. So many people have got it. It's practically the office number now. Most people just contact me on it directly.
That's right. Beautiful. Well, that's been really great, Cameron. Lots of info there. I know that the ladies will go away and go, oh, okay, I know I need this, but so we'll put some extra info, like I said, the trial link. We'll post that with the video for those people watching it back. And I guess it can't be. I can't stress enough from a coaching perspective about how important this is. I have had clients before in a situation that they didn't want to be in for the exact reasons that we discussed on this call, and they've been okay. We've got them through, but it's been a bloody struggle to get them through. And we're not talking about just a few dollars and cents here. And like you said, Cam, it doesn't matter the size of your business. We're all, it's actually not relevant, because if you're doing the work, you deserve to be paid for the work. And it's really important to make sure that you're protecting yourself and making sure that you're looking after your families as well by doing these processes. So.
This is one of the steps that every business goes through before they grow. It's part of your growth process. So if you want to grow your business, if you're serious about your business, this is something you're going to get through anyway. Much better to deal with it before you've actually lost money to someone owing you money than to wait till afterwards. So,
that's right. Please do.
Yeah.
So awesome. Well, thanks so much for your time, Cameron. We'll
My pleasure.
sign off.